sometimes it's okay to give yourself permission to take a break. Maybe the to-do list is not working for you and you need to take a break for a little while and trust that you'll come back to it when it's time. Like I think ADHDers in general, and especially those of us who got to adulthood and had to figure out how to be adults.
Yeah.
We have this idea in our head that like if something worked, it has to work forever, or that like if it's it's a personal failing if something's not working, and it's not. It's just who you are and how your brain functions. Your brain needs novelty.
Welcome to Wise Squirrels, the podcast for late diagnosed adults with ADHD. I'm your host, Dave Delaney. This episode of Wise Squirrels is sponsored by our friends at Inflow. Inflow helps you manage your ADHD-related challenges. You learn evidence-based techniques to navigate daily challenges associated with your ADHD. And you can get a clear picture of how ADHD impacts your life with personalized insights by giving their free quiz a try. Visit wisesquirrels.com/inflow. You'll improve your self-awareness and you'll get a better understanding with Inflow's free quiz, which is more than a personality test. It helps members get to know themselves on a deeper level, and you can develop more confidence and deeper self-understanding. Give it a try today and let me know, as I said, what you think. I'm thrilled to have Inflow back as our sponsor on this episode, so visit wisesquirrels.com/inflow. And if you're interested in sponsoring future episodes of this little podcast, you can visit wisesquirrels.com/sponsor for details. Today, I'm excited to share my interview with Stephanie Scheller, a self-described brain nerd, which I love, who turned managing her own ADHD into a science-backed playbook for focus, learning, and memorable experiences. And she knows a lot about memorable experiences because she runs Grow Disrupt. This is an events company that designs every detail with the ADHD brain in mind. We're talking about lighting that calms instead of drains, room layouts that reduce sensory overload, even custom scents and coffee blends that help you stay alert and remember what you learn. I hope Stephanie invites me to come speak at one of her events in the future. Stephanie shares how she stumbled into this work during the interview today. She talks about why habit stacking really does help her, and the small environmental tweaks that can give your brain back its bandwidth at home or even in the office. So we also get into networking, a topic near and dear to my heart. I wrote a book about it called New Business Networking. So networking that doesn't feel gross, though. We talk about practical ways to keep novelty working for you, whether it's networking or anything else you're doing. So if you've ever wished your space and your schedule and your systems would finally cooperate with your brain, well, this episode's for you. So let's get into it with Stephanie Scheller of Grow Disrupt.
I'm a nerd who studies the brain, particularly the ADHD brain, which I fell into trying to figure out how to, manage my own ADHD.
Yeah.
And then I figure, I look at all these academic studies and then I figure out how do I use this information in real life? And we use that information to produce events. So we produce Grow Your Business, personal growth conferences for small business owners. But we build them based on the neuroscience of the ADHD brain. So everything from the lighting to the food we serve, the way the agendas are architected together. We have custom scents and custom coffee blends and custom music, all built around studies that have been done so that people can stay focused. They can remember what they learned about. And that is it, the high level nutshell.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So when did you discover you have ADHD?
Okay, so that's kind of a two-part story because I was in my mid-20s. I'd started a sales training business and I was doing very well with it. And I had a friend in one of my networking groups that we went out for coffee, and her whole business was helping people get their diagnoses. And I joked at this coffee. I was like, yeah, I should probably have you like test me for ADHD because I've always wondered. And she almost spit out her coffee laughing. And she goes, Stephanie, I have been watching you. I don't need a test. You are the test.
Right.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
What do I do with this? But the problem for me at that time was I graduated summa cum laude from, my very small university. I held down jobs all the way through college. I was a top performer when I got my first official job. I then started and built a business from scratch in 5 months to replace my full-time income. I was running one of the largest sales training practices in Central. Like, I had all these things, and so I'm kind of sitting there and I'm like, all right, like, that's cool, great to have that. And I didn't really put any thought into it really until 2021, because 2020, our event business, we'd shifted, and the event business was really starting to get legs in like January of 2020, which was a really great time to be an event producer.
Yes. As a speaker, I understand that too.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. But then at the end of 2020, we had doubled in size. And so in 2021, I was like, I was trying to figure out what did we do? Because not only were we still selling tickets, which was definitely a marketing thing, but like we had people actually showing up to events when they were scared to leave the house. And so I was trying to figure out, what did we do? What was it that was so special for people that they would show up to an event when they were like in this phase? And what happened, and I was actually laughing looking at some of your stuff, because you posted a video, and this was a little while, or an article about the misinformation on TikTok. That was what sparked me to actually start realizing that some of the stuff that I do, like I would see these videos and be like, I didn't realize that was because of my ADHD. And now I realize not all of that is because of my ADHD, but it sparked me to be like, wait a second. So I do a ton of habit stacking. If I want to establish a new habit, I use habit stacking because it ties it to an existing habit. I use visual memory, visual reminders, and all these things. And all of a sudden I started realizing I had built most of my life around this ADHD.
Yes. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I started realizing I built our events around my ADHD too. Right. And so it was kind of this, if I did this by accident, what could I do on purpose? And so that was where I felt like completely down the rabbit hole. And I started reading like academic textbooks on how the brain works and like does actually understand neuroscience and ADHD. And that's where it got really out of control.
So when you had the event in 2020, what month would that have been?
So we had one event in January. That was like the one that we were like, oh my God, it's taken off. We're great.
Yeah.
And then we had another one in May.
Okay.
That again, people were showing up for.
Yeah.
We had another one in September.
Yeah.
And what was really interesting, and then we had another one in January 2021.
Yeah.
That again, like what was interesting was that we hadn't started selling out our events until the September event sold out, and then the January event sold out. And again, I'm just sitting here going, like, what? So
a lot less competition in the event space during that
there
period.
was definitely that, which was kind of nice.
Where are you based, by the way?
I'm based out of Central Texas. Okay. Our events, some of them were in Central Texas, and then especially at that time, we were, picking states that were allowing collections and people to collect. But like we have events that we do all over the US, depending on which event it is. So
were you worried at the time because of the pandemic of bringing people together in person? Like still, was there concern there? I mean, that was pretty early, so.
It was early, but so what was interesting, and this was part of what we started to figure out, a lot of the stuff that we did for like my own edification was all of like the best practices stuff. So like whenever we book a venue, it has to be able to hold at least double our expected attendance, because I really hate going to those events where like you're sitting there and I didn't realize it, like, but it's all that sensory stimuli. You're sitting there and you're trying, like, you're uncomfortable, but you're trying to pay attention, but like you're really uncomfortable as you're trying to take notes. And so like I never wanted that. So we always made sure we had tons of room.
Yeah.
We always made sure we had a garden that we like practically shove people out the doors into on the breaks.
Yeah.
Because getting around greenery resets the brain, so they retain more information. We already had air filters in the room at our events because I didn't like the smells after lunch.
Right.
So we had so many pieces. We still had to do a bunch of stuff. We still had to build out like a manual, but we had a lot of pieces that like we'd already been doing a ton of this stuff just because that was what I wanted. And so
yeah, because I saw some of the videos and stuff of obviously not during that time, but like some of the videos of some of your events and things. And yeah, I mean, they are very collaborative and you're kind of working together in groups and things. So yeah, I can imagine it must have been challenging having to like separate people, you know, so that okay, from across the room, like how can we, or whatever it is.
Yeah, we definitely got some pushback on masks from people. One of the things
for or against masks, like
both.
were people, I guess there's all types.
Well, and then of course you have the people who don't wear the masks who are like, well, you know, just put all the people who don't wear masks in one side of the room and the people who do them. And I was like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But we did pay for COVID testing. So before you were allowed to walk into any of our venues, you had to undergo a test, of course. So then you would take the test. We would serve breakfast out in the gardens so that you had 30 minutes for the test to go through. And there was stuff that we did that, you know, like I said, we stopped serving buffets. So there was never a buffet. It was always plated meals.
Yeah.
We had someone manning the drink station. So you'd be like, oh, I want some coffee. And then she would work the coffee thing.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So there was like all kinds of stuff that we had to do, but we were positioned in a way that most events were not.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's fantastic that it's grown like that. You talked earlier about, you know, your diagnosis, but that you were in a networking group and you were speaking to somebody who I assume worked in that space, or tell me a little bit about that. So you said you were 22, I think you said when you started
mid-20s. I think I was 24, 25.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just curious, like tell me a little bit about the networking aspect of things, like this networking group you were a part of, and what was that?
Yeah, so it was a fairly well-known group, a BNI group, and so you every Wednesday. I was the education coordinator for the event, so I would get up every Wednesday and I would do a short training on education and how to network better, and so like that was the stuff she started pointing to. She was like, I watch how you run the education sessions every month. Every week. I watch how you sit at the table every week. I watch, and she just started giving me all these lists of things. So we showed up every Wednesday for these, and then you went and you did one-on-ones. And I think her and I had done 3 or 4 one-on-ones at that point, just because I was fascinated by what she did. And I was like, this is so cool. And I was seriously thinking I should get a test because I was curious and apparently
yeah that's amazing. No, part of the reason why I asked that too is I wrote a book called New Business Networking. So networking is something near and dear to my heart, in an area that I love, always with the emphasis on non-icky networking, right? Like networking, like my publisher helped me, you know, I was very green as an author. I've written a million blog posts and newsletters, but never a book. And so my publisher kind of guided me on stuff, some for good and some not as good. But like the title New Business Networking wasn't quite as sexy as something I would have liked. And my website at the time and some of the training I was doing, and I still have a keynote presentation I do called Networking for Nice People.
Nice.
And so, so like I started, you know, I wrote a lot around networking topics and things. So I'm always interested in that because I think there's so much value in connecting, especially these days too, connecting in person and meeting up and finding, you know, not being the smartest person in the room so you can learn from others, but still finding ways to, I always call it kind of planting seeds, right? Finding ways to serve others in your network first and foremost, and introductions or advice or whatever it may be. So
I work really hard. I don't tend to attend as many networking events anymore, especially as I've started to realize more of like what are the masking pieces that really drain me, and I don't. And so, but I do a lot of like work to do just networking through LinkedIn and connecting with people. And I always go in very clear. And when I do go to a networking event, I always use the same thing. I'm like, I'm not here to sell and I'm not here to be sold. I'm here to connect.
Yeah.
If I can help you either through something I do or through connecting you to someone, I would love to focus on that first. I even had a guy who was like, well, I would love to meet with you, but can we meet with an eye on sending each other referrals? I was like, no.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. If I don't like, and I was nicer about this in the message, but
Yeah.
it was basically like, if I don't know you and I don't like you, I'm not going to promise to send you referrals.
No, of course not. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just talk first, right?
I've been on LinkedIn now, I guess, probably since the very early days. So, because I'm kind of an early adopter in a lot of tech stuff. So I've been on LinkedIn probably. I know I passed 12 years, but it's probably like more like 14 at this point. And early on, it was the early days of social. So I would just accept connection requests just as I would accept following on Twitter and follow back and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
thing. And then learn that, like, you know, it's quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways people can use LinkedIn is to, and I was like a keynote speaker for LinkedIn for one of their conferences, right?
Ooh.
And I have a chapter of my book about using LinkedIn. So like I love LinkedIn to an extent. They should be paying me at this point, but whatever. Google actually did. They hired me for like 6 years. But with LinkedIn, I find that, and they've screwed a few things up. They've screwed one major thing up, which is I've always said that when you send a connection request, to always include a personal note and say, you know, hey, Steph, it was great meeting you at conference X or the BNI event or whatever. You know, I'd love to follow up, connect, and have coffee. And you send a personal note, because otherwise you may not remember that person. And this is my case. So if somebody sends me a connection request and I don't know who they are, I have a process for that. But typically I don't accept the connection request right away, at least. Right. And now they've screwed it up where you can only do 3 a month with a personal note, unless you're paying for LinkedIn. And it's really a shame, because now, you know, the more people you accept as connections and people that you don't necessarily know, the more it affects the quality of your network. Because for me personally, at this point, because I know most people that I'm connected with on LinkedIn to some extent, if you reached out to me and you said, hey, Dave, you know, now we're connected on LinkedIn, you reach out to me, you say, hey, Dave, I see you're connected to so-and-so at company X, and I'm looking for an in there. I would love to connect with that person. Would you mind providing an introduction? I'm happy to do that. Right. But if you say, hey, can you connect me? I'm like, I can't, because I really don't know this person at all. Right? So anyway.
Yeah, they've definitely made a very big push. And I know this, you know, real podcast will come out a little after we record it, but at least as of time of recording, I would say in the past like 4 months, there's been a very big push towards getting people to pay for LinkedIn. And they're taking away a lot of the stuff that was really helpful to it. I do still really love LinkedIn, but like, I pay for the premium, because I want to be able to, when I send a connection request, you know, I get people who connect with me all the time from events. Right? I spoke at this event, and so this person was like, oh my God, I want to connect that. I want to be able to note that, because when I go in to chat with someone, I don't want to have to sit there and, try and figure out, and let me go check the CRM real quick and see if I put any notes in here. And like, that turns too many steps. So yeah, I don't love that. I don't love the boosting posts thing that they've added for the person. There's a lot of things that I'm like, y'all are pushing a little.
Yeah, I think the organic reach of a Facebook page now is like 1.6%. So like if you post something on a Facebook page, only 1.6% of the people that are following or like that page will even see that organically. So without boosting it or paying for it, that's last I heard. It might be better or worse now. I don't know. But yeah, it's a shame, but it's also a reason why I've always been like, this is something I've preached since the very beginning, which is and I learned the hard way, is don't build your network on borrowed land, on land that you don't own, right?
Yep.
Because if you do and something happens, it's gone. What happened? It happened to me in 2007 on Twitter. 2008. I started it in 2007. Now I wouldn't recommend Twitter to my worst enemy, but that's a different story.
Mm.
I was on Twitter and I had all these, friends, people that I would correspond with regularly, who I didn't even know their real names in some cases because they had like some random name as their Twitter profile.
Sure.
And one Friday I went to log into Twitter and it said, your account has been suspended due to suspicious activity.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing anything sneaky, and it was obviously a mistake. And it took me several days, luckily, of using other platforms at the time, like Jaiku and Plurk and all these other competitors of Twitter that are long gone, to reach out to my network there to say, hey, who do we know at Twitter? We need to figure this out because I need to get my access back.
Yep.
And I use the analogy of like a quite dated analogy, so I apologize to the younger listener, but of somebody breaking in your house and stealing your address book or your Rolodex. Right. Like suddenly you don't have any information. You can't contact these people anymore.
Yeah.
And so I would always, probably with the premium LinkedIn, I would imagine you can probably back it up. I would hope, including those notes that you're taking on people. And I would encourage you and anyone else to make sure to back up your listener, your connections, once a month or once every couple of weeks, just in case, because LinkedIn could go down. They could think, oh, you're suspended for no reason,
and
even as a premium user.
Like there's definitely, and one of the things that I was, especially like, for the, speaking to the ADHD side, right? Whenever we start thinking about adding in layers of complexity, like, okay, I got to start backing up my stuff all the time. Even if you only back it up once a quarter, because that's when you can remember to do it. Like, even that's better than never doing it, because it's going like, and I always recommend, like as you're talking, all I keep thinking about is like all the people who've been freaking out about losing TikTok over the past, like, year at this point, where they're like, oh my God, like my whole business revolves around TikTok. I'm like, then you don't have a business. Like you kind of do, but like you have a really unstable business. None of your stuff should rely on a single platform, especially something you don't own. I had to learn the hard way, even in your mailing list, you should be downloading and backing that up every so often as well, because
100%.
We had an issue with a very popular emailing campaign where they just started deleting my contacts. They couldn't figure out why. I couldn't figure it out.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I'm not joking. I lost almost 800 contacts.
That's brutal.
Was very, very angry. And so, like everything, even if you can only do it every so often, like that is still going to be better.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier a couple things, one about setting reminders, and that's something I live and die by. So I'm constantly, talking to whatever app I use or to set reminders as I think of them at certain dates, or so you can easily set a reminder once a month or once a quarter, as you said, or whenever, to back up and download. Like I do it every month. My Substack newsletter subscribers who are awesome. I always export that list so that I have that email list. It's also like a password protected so that it doesn't get stolen or anything, because I'm very careful with privacy and people's contact information. But you mentioned something else, habit stacking. And I'd love for you to explain what that is for folks, because I think that is something that can really be helpful, and maybe to me as well. And I'm familiar with it, but we need to practice what we preach sometimes. And so I would love a refresher, and for folks who are unfamiliar.
The other thing I always tell people every single time I talk to someone, I always tell people, remember that your experience with ADHD is your experience. Like everyone has a different lived experience based on your background, based on, the extent of how far, and if you have coexisting diagnoses. So what I always encourage people to remember is, one, habit stacking has been a game changer, lifesaver for me. But just because, and I'll walk y'all through how I do it, but like, I recommend trying it. And if you need to tweak it to find the way it works for you, tweak it to find the way it works for you. And if you try it a few times and it's not working, don't beat yourself up over it, because everyone's going to have different things they respond to. So all that said, habit stacking is the idea that if you have a new habit you want to create, you tie it to an existing habit. So we all have existing habits, some things that we do that we've gotten on autopilot almost, or that we like brushing our teeth. Most of us don't need a reminder to brush our teeth in the morning. A lot of times it's because it's tied to something else that we've turned into a habit, right? So the idea of habit stacking is that if you have a habit that already exists, then tie a new habit to that. Now, the caveat I always give people here is the new habit has to be tied to a habit of existing effort, right? Or equal effort. So for example, saying that you are going to go to the gym every evening after you finish eating dinner, because you could eat dinner every day because that's a habit. Those two things are not equivalent in effort, right? That's probably not going to stick. But if you say, okay, every time I go upstairs, I'm going to do 5 squats, right? It's not a lot of effort to go up the stairs. It's not a ton of effort to do 5 squats. That's something you can start to tie together. Now, for me personally, something like that, I need a visual reminder, because I will go up the stairs and then be like, I forgot, right? And you only get to do that so many times before your brain goes, oh, these 2 habits aren't stacked. So I would put like either, a little sticky note of a guy doing squats, like right on the stairs. And I would usually do like a sticky note so I can move it up the stairs. Right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great.
Because otherwise change blindness kicks in. And so now I see the sticky note, I don't see the sticky note. The example I use all the time for people is I tied, I'm really, really bad at drinking water. Like I am not, it's on the weekends, I get dehydrated. We've learned this, and we've learned so what I had to do was I tied going downstairs, my office is upstairs, to taking my tumbler and refilling the water. And so every single time I go downstairs, I have to have my tumbler and I have to refill it, which means it has to be empty. So half the time, as I'm getting ready to go downstairs, I'll stop, I'll come back here, grab my tumbler. Half the time it's still mostly full, and I'll end up drinking it as I go downstairs, as I refill.
Right.
But the way I stacked that habit was I literally got I got a tumbler, and I got several tumblers so I could change them out so that they weren't always the same. And when I would come upstairs in the morning, I would just put the tumbler in front of the stairs. And that was and once that started to connect, now I start to go downstairs without my tumbler. My brain's like, oh my God, you forgot something. And I come running back. But like it's choosing an existing, doesn't take me any thought to go downstairs. And I'm going to go downstairs.
Yeah.
But if I need to drink more water, let's tie that to something I'm already going to do. Yeah. And that is habit stacking in its finest. And
that's a great example. That's a great example. I like that a lot, actually. It's a good one. And also just drinking water helps for all the obvious reasons too. I mean, I have a terrible back and a lot of back pain that comes and goes, but part of it's just being older, I guess. And so I need to stretch frequently. And so by drinking a lot of water, bio breaks come, right? So you've got to go pee. And so you have to get up to pee unless you have some weird setup. I do not.
I don't either.
Not you, but like anybody.
Jared, but we're not going to dig into that one.
Right. So you have to get up. And something else I learned when I read a couple books about mind health, and I learned about something that stood out to me was that when you are, because I tend to snack, especially at night, and not necessarily on good things. And what I learned is that often when you're hungry, it's actually you're thirsty. Yeah. Right. And if you're thirsty, it usually means you're getting dehydrated. So if you're hungry, you're like, I could use something to eat. Instead, go get some water or coffee or whatever. But and if you're feeling thirsty, then definitely drink water or something, because you are dehydrated probably at that point.
Yeah. So like you tie that to, okay, so after dinner, if I'm hungry, my new rule is I have to drink a whole glass of water. And then if I'm still hungry 10 minutes later, then I can get a snack, right? That starts to make that shift. Like I was thinking your thing with like needing to stretch more. So if I were doing something like that, what I would probably do is say, okay, I'm going to tie stretching to my bathroom breaks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a couple of visual reminders to put around my office So when I stand up, like maybe I have these chirp wheels that are great for like you roll over them and it stretches your back. It's fantastic. I might get a couple of chirp wheels and put them in a really obnoxious place for a few weeks, like in the middle of the office.
Yeah.
So every time I leave, I'm like, oh, I gotta stretch. I might get like one of those bars that go across the thing so that I have to, stretch up and that. So I would find a few visual reminders to start tying the two so that then I'm going to go to the bathroom probably. So I'm going to use this existing habit to create a new habit, and I'm going to do it by building in these visual reminders for myself.
It's interesting, like I'm looking at my floor because in my office here I have a mat and I have the actual stretch instructions printed on paper right by the mat. And yet I don't do it.
I wonder if you could move the stretch instructions around, like put them on the sink in the bathroom so that you have to move them to wash your hands. And so now it's like, now you have to carry it back to your office.
Yeah.
So go put it and just have like a stack of them in the bathroom. So once you wash your hands, then you put a new one on, you carry that back in it. Like even something like that, we're finding that for me,
that's a good idea.
Super physical, right? That's why I need the visual reminders. I need something to hold on to with that. And putting things in my way has consistently been one of the best ways to tie something together. So the sticky notes on the stairs as I'm walking up that are moving, the tumbler that literally, blocks me, or that I did kick down the stairs many times.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I think the visual reminders is a great idea. And also it's almost like a tangible nagging.
Yes.
Like a self-nagging, right? Like it's not like your spouse or partner or friend or someone nagging you. No, it's like you nagging yourself like, hey, come on.
Yeah.
You need this. You need it.
If you try one visual reminder that doesn't work, you can find it. That's the cool thing. You can find another. Like there's so many different ways you can play this one. So you can find the one that stands out for your brain. Like that's fantastic.
Yeah, I just started walking again. I'm in Nashville, and and kind of a little in the burbs a little, and but I was back in Toronto where I'm from for like about 10 days recently, and my mom was in the hospital, and it was like I don't know, like a few miles between where I was staying and the hospital. So like last winter when I was back, I would just walk to the hospital every day. And it's in my old neighborhood where I grew up. So it's kind of cool to like walk around. But I was just like, I love being in a city and walking everywhere.
That's walkable.
Like,
yeah.
I always say that like I believe in like accidental exercise, right? Where like I used to ride my bike in Toronto like 45 minutes in the morning to work and then 45 minutes home. And it was pleasurable to like ride and just the fresh air, watching all the gridlock traffic going by. And so I've just started walking. There's a trail not far from my house, and I was doing it pretty well until, life turned upside down for a while and I forgot, then I stopped doing it. And I've just started doing it again, but getting to your point about like, even like rewarding yourself, if you could do it in the process too, right? Like, for example, I'll listen to a podcast or I'll record some audio. I think out loud. And so a lot of times I'll record myself speaking and then I'll listen to that later or look at the transcript later to pull out the most important things. Of course, these days I can do that with AirPods and people just think I'm talking on the phone. So I'm not completely, I haven't completely lost I'm not the madman walking down the street, blah, 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 talking to myself. Right.
I love the idea of tying, especially something you need to do, to something you really want, like having a book that you're only allowed to read when you're on the treadmill or an audio or something. The other thing, okay, so we've also started getting back into the walking thing recently. Have you ever heard of the Conqueror event medals?
The Conqueror event medals?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so you'll have to look these up. We've been having way too much fun with it, my husband and I. So you pick a medal, right? A trail, and they have some really cool. So I'm currently doing Yosemite, walking through Yosemite because it was like, a shorter trail, but they have like, you can walk to Mordor and destroy the ring. Like
Right.
you can do like Star Trek and like there's all kinds of fun ones. And as you go through, as you log distances, it unlocks views and postcards and like all sorts of things that you get to see, which is really fun. And then when you finish it, you get an actual like physical medal in the mail. And so it's made it really fun. And some of these medals are really cool looking. So it's made it really fun to get back into exercise. Like my husband and I both chose different medals. We're both going through it. And so now it's turned into like, yes, we're still walking in the evenings, but then like, occasionally we sneak out on our own to try and get ahead of the other person.
So wait. So are you doing this like on a treadmill with like some VR thing or like?
No, we walk. Okay, I know everyone's not gonna be able to see this, but we walk around. So you walk wherever, right? Go walk and then you log. Although of course now the app does not want to load.
Okay.
As I'm trying to show you, that's hilarious. So as you log, you go in and log, and then you log it in the app, and then you can click like see view, and so wherever you've gotten to on the trail, then you can look around.
What that's
the view
cool.
is.
So it's like a layers thing. I see. So your phone. So the app is tracking your walking, and then you can kind of like a layers kind of VR or not VR exactly, but you can look at it around and see kind of a Pokemon Go kind of deal.
Yeah, like so you hold your phone up and then you just like turn it and you get to see the whole area. You're like turning around with your phone. It's very, very Pokemon Go. Which has been just fun. And so like being able to pick which like the next one I want to go walk along the Amalfi Coast, which is the next one, right? I'm like, be gorgeous, right?
Yeah. I've walked along the real one and it was quite nice.
See, I'm glad I did Yosemite first because it was shorter, and I was like, all right, I want to do this one, it'll be pretty. But now I'm like, I want to get done with it so I can go do the Amalfi Coast. Like I have this thing to look forward to.
So do they? And they send you a medal like a kind of like a coin or like a badge or is it like a? Yeah.
It's each like specific to, so like the Yosemite medal that I'm going to get is going to be different. It's a different design celebrating Yosemite compared to the one that my husband will get because he picked a different course.
Sure.
So it's not like just the circle. It's like, I think it's got some of the mountains and some of the views engraved on it. And it's like, they're very, very.
That's a really cool idea. That's a great, right? What's the app called again?
It's called the Conqueror event medals. And they go viral online every so often. So you like when you go look it up, you're like, oh, I've seen this. Because that was definitely like my husband was like, oh, I started doing these. I was like, oh, okay, I'll look at it. I've been seeing these. So
yeah, and there is something to be said for the tangibility of things. Like I'm very digital, but I'm also very analog. And I find, just writing in a journal on paper or a to-do list on paper is just way better.
Yeah.
I even like my non-sponsor here, but for if somebody's not seeing this, my time timer.
Ooh.
Have you seen these?
No. Oh wait,
my God.
Those right where it pulls the color out?
Yeah. So like you time it for an hour. So this is a visual timer, and they're actually originally made for children, and they still are. But like with ADHD, if you're working on a task, let's say you're going for like inbox 0 and you need to finish your emails and you have 30 minutes to do it, you'll have the timer on your desk, and as I like look at one email and then I go down a rabbit hole because the email's about whatever, and I go and Google or ChatGPT or somewhere, and suddenly I get lost and distracted. I look back. I have this on my desk, so I look back and I'm like, oh crap! Like 10 minutes has passed with one email. Oh my God, I've only got 20 minutes left. And then it beeps annoyingly, which it will now. But that has been, and I've reached out to them. I'm like, come on, man, you guys should sponsor Wise Squirrels. This is the perfect thing. But
because I've seen those, I've never gotten the dopamine rush until I just watched you moving that timer thing. All of a sudden I was like, oh,
it adds the urgency, right? Like the gamification aspects, right? It adds that urgency because you see, you visually see it. Like I built a Pomodoro timer. I coded it. It's on ysquirrels.com under the resources section. And so you can put up on one tab or one screen, you can put up the Pomodoro timer. It's 25 minutes and press start, and it will count down, and you can work and glance at it, and it's counting down in your other screen if you have multiple screens or another tab or what have you. So it works well digitally. And it's free. Like I just built it. I get ideas of things to help people and then I just build them. But yeah, the time timer I'd heard about. And so from multiple guests on the podcast and finally bought one. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there really is something to be said for in real life, IRL.
Yep. That physical element. I think that's the cool thing. And you'd mentioned the paid versus free. The Conqueror stuff, you do have to pay for your medal. Like Matt was laughing. He's like, you're basically buying it. I was like, you are, but you're also like buying motivation. To clarify for people up front.
I'm sure they're not sending it for free. I didn't expect that. Yeah.
But like, I love finding the stuff that we get excited about and then just leveraging that. And there is something about it being physical and tangible. And I do the same thing. I have a ton of digital. And I have e-ink writers that I used to do my to-do out through. And I don't do it through them anymore because it's not quite as there's not quite as much dopamine in scratching off the e-ink writer as there is like with my notebook. So I hear you on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it's just finding ways to get stuff done, right? And whether you're gamifying it or finding some way to kind of make it. One of the curses of ADHD, which I think is quite common among, and as you mentioned, everybody's different, of course, but there are, I always say it is an acronym, like it does stand for, and while there's only one type of ADHD, there's, 3 presentations, the hyperactive, inattentive, and then or hyperactive, impulsive, inattentive, and combined. Yeah. But the consistent thing I've come across often with people, and again, not everybody's the same, is this curse of novelty where it works wonderfully, for a time, and then the novelty wears off. I'm sick of these medals, or I'm, all right, enough of that. Or I've kicked the water bottle down the stairs too many times in the middle of the night, or my partner is getting annoyed by it, or whatever. And the novelty kind of runs off, and then you're like, crap, now I got to find something new. Do you find that happens to you too? And what do you do about it if it does?
Yeah, so I definitely do. And my biggest thing with working with that kind of novelty drain, right? So when the novelty wears off, is I guess a couple of fold. One is trying to understand why something did work, right? So the stair thing, the tumbler at the top of the stairs worked because it was physical, because it was annoying, and because it changed. Okay, so the tumbler at the top of the stairs isn't working anymore. What else could I tie this to? Is there something else I could do that would feel novel, that would feel interesting? Okay, the medals are no longer working for me. What was it about those that did work? What did I really like? Well, what could I do instead? And one of the great things, about today's day is sometimes you can just go to one of the AI bots and be like, I can't think of what, but I love these. They're no longer working for me. Here's what I loved about it. Is there another option that would have that novelty concept? For like the to-do notebook for me, I found 2 things. One, changing out the pens that I use helps with the novelty. And so I'll use one pen until I'm starting to be like, this is really boring. And then I go find a new pen and I get to buy myself a new pen. I rarely ever finish out a pen. Like I don't run out of ink.
Yeah, that's interesting.
This is a cool new teal ink pen and I want to see the teal. And so I'll find ways to thread some novelty into something that I want to keep doing, like a to-do list every day. Yeah. Even when I know it's going to reach a point of boring. And the other thing I also do is sometimes it's okay to give yourself permission to take a break. Maybe the to-do list is not working for you and you need to take a break for a little while and trust that you'll come back to it when it's time. I think ADHDers in general, and especially those of us who got to adulthood and had to figure out how to be adults.
Yeah.
We have this idea in our head that if something worked, it has to work forever, or that if it's, it's a personal failing. If something's not working, and it's not, it's just who you are and how your brain functions. Your brain needs novelty. It's okay if something's no longer feeding you to be it doesn't make it less because it doesn't work for you anymore. It just means that you're in a different space and time, and that's okay. So cutting back.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, you raised some good points there. Like if the novelty has run off, it doesn't celebrate, first of all, that it was working.
Yeah.
And then instead of thinking it doesn't work anymore, think about a way that you might be able to tweak it by changing the color pen or whatever it is, so that, you mentioned earlier about the water bottles, like you've got several different water bottles, different colors and stuff, right? So again, just maybe finding ways to kind of tweak it into making it kind of refreshed rather than new.
Yeah.
And then celebrating that. And also you mentioned, using AI, with the caveat for everybody that, be careful about
Yes.
believing everything your AI agent may tell you. And also, don't build a relationship with it, God forbid, and don't share your personal information with it either. But that all aside, the AI agents have been just absolutely so helpful in so many ways. And so, as a partner, in a sense, not a friend partner, but in a partner sort of sense, you can actually brainstorm alternatives, like you're saying. So if you can't think of a way, the water bottle thing's not working anymore, what could I use instead, or what could I do? And asking, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity,
whatever,
or Anthropic, or you name it, asking it, and then maybe brainstorming for some ideas, and also talking to people too, right? In real life, other wise squirrels, as I like to say. So you've applied like a lot of these principles that you've learned about applying sort of the research into neuroscience and sort of space design and things like that into your events. What are some like environmental factors that can help professionals with their space, like where they work, whether it's solopreneurs, presumably like yourself or like myself, or people that just work from home, versus if you work in an office, if you're in a cubicle. I mean, I've been there, cubicle. Besides accommodate, I mean, obviously it's
you can request to come accommodations, but it's not always reasonable to request, and two, there's still a lot of things. Like I have a lot of people when I come in and do these talks, and they're always like, we can't give everyone a $3,000 chair to make them comfortable. I'm like, I'm not going to encourage that. But what you could do is give them permission to have a stool at their desk if their legs are too short. Like, let them figure out how to work with the ergonomics. Some of these rules around cubicle requirements are insane, right? Like if their desktop needs to be higher because they need that ergonomic support. And I always encourage people, do think in terms of ergonomics, because your brain eats a lot of glucose. It eats a lot of your resources. And if you're having those resources eaten up by your body trying to compensate because your chair is terrible, or because your computer screen's at the wrong level, or the lighting, we'll talk about so pay attention to your ergonomics. Look into is my keyboard at the right level? Is my mouse, like I tell people all the time, I got this really stupid, weird looking mouse. Everyone gives me weird looks when they see my mouse, but it eliminates the
you might have
twist.
the same one.
Oh my gosh, do you have that's hilarious? See, it's so much more comfortable.
If you're listening to this, it's I forget, it's a Logitech. I don't have my glasses on. It's like an MX something, right?
You must not have the exact same brand.
Mine's called MX Master 3 for Mac. I believe it's Logitech, but
either way, if you look up like a sideways mouse, y'all, cool.
Yeah.
So ergonomics is one of the first things I tell people to look at, because most of us have something in our office setup that's not working for us, whether it's the computer screen, the desk, the mouse, the keyboard, whatever, the chair. So ergonomics is one of the first things, because it's kind of like trying to go to work with the parking brake on. Like, it's draining your gas, whether you notice it or not. Same thing for clutter. And this one I know is really hard for ADHDers. Like, clutter gets everywhere. Stuff gets everywhere.
What do you mean? My office is completely clean.
Yeah, so is the version of my office you can see. But what happens is, like, throughout the week, stuff gets added, this gets done. I have paperwork right here that I have to send to my accountant, right? Like, all this stuff clutters up. And the problem with this is, again, it's that parking brake concept where we have change blindness built into our brains, where your brain is registering the clutter. It's just not telling you about it anymore, because it's decided, the clutter isn't life threatening, but it's still eating up, think about it like a computer. It's like a software running in the background, eating your RAM. And so you don't have as much. So what I encourage people to do is get a clutter basket. and just have it below or out of sight at the end of every week or the beginning of every week or whenever. Everything that doesn't really need to be on your desk that is just like, I have probably, I don't know, way too many fidgets. Like all the extra stuff. Now the fidgets stay within reaching distance. But there's other stuff on my desk that I don't need to have. The box for the headphones that I'm not ready to throw away because what if I need it for some reason?
Yeah.
Goes in the clutter basket. And then in 6 months, when the clutter basket's overflowing, I'll go through. I'll throw away the stuff I haven't needed. But this way, it's nearby, but it's not eating bandwidth.
Yeah. There's a great satisfaction. Sorry to interrupt. There's a great satisfaction there, by the way. Like I'll, every month or two, maybe I'll like empty my desk drawers and the crap I have in boxes on the floor or whatever. And I'll put it all into like one big box and I'll take it to my living room and literally dump it all on the floor, like just a mess. And then I'll put on a podcast or an audiobook or something in my headphones. And then I'll just start going through it all. And I'll just separate it in a garbage, recycling, keep it, whatever, right? Like just 3 piles or 4, I can't remember. And then I'll just go through it. And there, and I'm listening to some comedy podcast or whatever I'm listening to. I'm entertained and I'm doing it. And then, nothing takes as long as it seems. So it doesn't take as long as you expect. And there is a great satisfaction in completing that task and something that I'm going to remind myself to do this weekend.
Well, and the other thing too is, especially if you've been eating up less bandwidth for months now, as you're like, then you have a little more capacity to be able to, I can, like, it makes a bigger difference than most people realize is clear the clutter off the desk. I use I know for sake of time, I want to talk about 2 more that are really, really helpful people don't think about. One is lighting. And lighting, again, if you're in a cubicle, you only have so much control of this, but there's a few things that are really important. One is, as much as possible, try to avoid overhead and direct light. Let your light diffuse, either get diffusers over lights. If you're in a cubicle and you're allowed to, get a light that you can put some sort of diffusing shade over, and then angle it at like the cubicle wall so it diffuses. Shadows end up eating into, again, brain capacity, because every time that shadow hits, your brain's like some part of your brain pays attention, because that's how the brain is programmed, is to pay attention, because that shadow could be a saber-toothed tiger coming to eat you. It's not, but yeah. So those shadows tend to be really harsh on the brain. Again, it eats up capacity. I always talk about your space design being kind of like, for me, the super secret thing that I can do that I set up once and then I don't have to think about again, because it's just there. I don't have to reset my lighting every single week. So as an ADHDer, that's great for me to be able to do something once and not mess with it. Yeah. So think about your lighting, eliminate overhead, try and eliminate like the really harsh blue backed tones, or if you can, avoid doing fluorescence, because that buzz will kill you. But like even if you just get lighting, the lights in my office are all aimed at the walls so that they're diffusing through the room. They're warmer colored lights to try and keep the room feeling a little more welcoming and calmer, because I tend to go into like basically tension spirals. And so thinking about your lighting, and that's usually able to be done cubicle or your own space. And
you can buy these Wi-Fi connected light bulbs that can change color too. So you could actually, without too much difficulty, you can actually even program like your, Alexa or whatever it is to change the color of throughout the day based on the time of day to kind of match the sort of circadian rhythm kind of deal. I'm always like, I'm careful with that, because I always try to I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor, so I never pretend to. But like I bought like blue blocking glasses, but then I've learned that like the science it's not they don't necessarily even work much. And I learned this because ever since Andrew Huberman created his own and sells them for hundreds of dollars, I just saw a video kind of basically sharing that it's BS. And actually he on earlier recordings of him, he talked about how a lot of these don't work. Yeah. And then he has his own now to cash in on, which is just like, oh God.
It's kind of,
but for me, for lighting personally, just sorry to interrupt, but like for lighting personally, And I always like, having learned that I have ADHD at 50. I'm always like, and I joke sometimes, I want to talk to more neurotypical people. I mean, nobody's like 100% neurotypical. It's all spectrum sort of, but then there's, obviously ADHD is ADHD, but I always want to speak to like a neurotypical person. Like, is it like, don't these lights drive you crazy? Like, isn't it you too? Cause I think most people hate fluorescent lighting and all these light bulbs nowadays that are like these bright LED daylight color that just like drives me insane.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll shut up. Number 2.
Okay. No. Like I'm almost rolling my eyes because like you're so. And I walked into a room the other day, and this is what I talk about a lot for people. Is like I walked into a room the other day, and like I got dizzy in the room because the lights were buzzing and they were flickering. It was really bad. Yeah. And other people in the room were like, well, I mean, like they're not great, but like it's not that big a deal. And I'm like, we're just more sensitive to that stuff. Like that's how our brain works.
And there's things about lighting too. Like I remember being in a McDonald's once years ago, and in the bathroom they had blue lights, and I'm like, what the hell? And I learned that it was because it was in a rough area, and a lot of junkies would go and shoot drugs. It makes it harder to see. And it's harder to see your veins in the blue light. And I've also heard about how malls spray. They have like a pink kind of hue light on the outside of the malls. And the reason why is because it brings out the acne in your face. It makes you look terrible. And that's to try to get teenagers to stop them from hanging out outside of the mall at night. So the light actually, it's like the same reason why they pipe in like classical music or anything that's like a deterrent on teenagers. Yeah. So anyway, I totally fell down a rabbit hole there. Sorry.
Okay, so this is the rabbit hole that I like dive into because then I was like, okay, so what does lighting do? And like I haven't talked about it, but like different colors do different things to your brain. And so having stuff, there are ones you can get, like you said, that you can program to be like, hey, let's work with some warmer but brighter, more white colored ones, and then let's like ease it into more yellows. Like working with that, it does change focus points, like how you're it has an impact on the brain more than people realize. And I usually try not to nerd out too deep on that stuff, but like if you really want to get into it, anyone who's interested, I have a ton of these studies saved that are like, what does lighting, what does color, what does scent, because that's the one that no one ever thinks about. One of our biggest ones for space that we've learned to leverage is scent. And so get a scent that is your office scent or that is your working scent. And what it does is that as you get your brain trained, and but as you start to use the scent consistently during work hours, that now becomes a work scent. So your brain smells that and is like, okay, I've got to and it helps support focus. So there's different scents you can use that do tend to support focus and stuff. I worked with an actual and I'm blanking on, it's not a scentologist, it's
odorologist.
And he's one of the top ones in the nation. And I was like, here's what I want. And he thought I was nuts when I went to him, but I was like, we need to use these, like it needs to have these types of scents in it because this is what that does to the brain. But we created a scent just for our events that helps people stay focused. The other thing it does is scent also is very closely tied to memory. And so particularly if you have an activity, so I do a lot of fantasy writing too. Like I write fantasy books. I have certain scents that are only for writing fantasy books because it's tied to memory, because I've been able to use that scent when I really got into it with something. It moves me over to that. It starts sparking all those memories and pulling me into that space
that's interesting.
A lot quicker. So scent is something people don't think about that, again, can be a background piece. And again, you can get like really cool scent diffusers where you can be like, hey, so like, let's say you work from home like I do. From 8 a.m. to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I want you to pipe this scent. And then around 4:30, I want you to start switching it over to this scent. And it's been a great way for me to start disengaging my brain from work, because all of a sudden the home scent starts. And I'm like,
okay, I gotta ask, what are the focus scents that you have found that work best?
That work. Okay, so citrus based and herb based both are focus driving. So herb based being like some of the sharper ones. So rosemary is really good. It's not necessarily herb based, but fir, like fir trees. But
that puts me in the Christmas mode, and I'm just like, I'm like really chill and Yeah,
Well,
but go
so
on. Not everybody. Yeah.
to like cardamom and cinnamon, right? Because those are, first of all, those are not focus scents. Those that,
I
but
pay
so
tax.
right. So what do you think? I'm gonna
smell
go do
cinnamon.
Christmas shopping all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
right.
Uh-oh. But so finding a scent that is so. I've got someone who uses a rosemary orange candle that she got a light because she doesn't like to light candles because she's like, oh my god, I'm gonna forget to blow it out. Which
All right.
fair, that's my issue too. But she got one of those like warmer things, and so it melts the candle, so it diffuses the scent into the air. And it's just a rosemary orange, I believe, something like that.
Yeah.
So primarily citrus and herb. Finding some combination of those two helps with perking the brain up and helping it focus a little.
That's
bit
amazing. That's a really great tip. And for anyone who's curious about this, and I don't have science or data, but I do know that, like, well, just as we were talking about lighting, I do know how I feel in certain lighting environments, and really even beyond the science, like you have to do what makes you feel best, right? Regardless of whether there's science backing it up or not, within reason, of course. And then with scents, like a friend of mine told me that, I think it's Palm Springs or maybe Miami. It's some city that's quite affluent, in an affluent area, that pipes in scent in the city. So, and the city actually has smell.
Its own use. Yes.
He told me this and I was like, yeah, right. And I actually did look it up and researched it. And sure enough, yeah. And you can actually buy that scent, in a perfume or cologne or whatever, if you're like longing for that city. And, in Toronto back in the day when the bars let out, there was a brilliant pizza place, which had great pizza. At least it was delicious for me because I was probably drunk. But they would pipe in, they would have the fan in the window and all that scent of pizza out. And I will add also a friend of mine who has a TEDx talk about this. He does this for brands. He does like odor brands or something. Yep. And what he does is, like, he told me once he did this for like a big grocery chain, like a Kroger or Publix or whatever, where there was a brand that makes Mexican foods, taco shells, tortillas, all that. And so they decided to they pumped out sort of the smell of Mexican type of food within the store on Tuesdays.
And they sold a ton of Mexican
and they sold a ton. And that also, by the way, subconsciously, that also works with music too. So like, if you put in like, mariachi music on the background, really quiet. It's like, we should do tacos tonight. So there is psychological stuff to this, and the way Vegas, like the way casinos are designed to pump in oxygen to keep you awake, so you keep
scent and music. Yeah. I can send you. I do have the studies that I.
I'd love to see it. Yeah,
so I can definitely, because that was a really big thing for me. Right. I have what is right. I have this diagnosis through my friend who that's what she did for a living, right? And the more I've learned, the more I've been like, oh my God, yeah. This is very, but I don't have a PhD. And so everything we do, right? I work really hard to make sure we don't do anything unless there's some sort of backing behind it. Like, I want an academic study that's peer reviewed and published to back. And there are a ton of studies about what scent does, what color does, what lighting does, what music does. All of these are things that, like, we don't think about leveraging for ourselves, but this is something you can set up. Again, like, think about your lighting. Even if you just, like, one time go spiral down the rabbit hole and set up your space, and now you have that.
Yeah.
All as long as you're in that space. Like, it's really cool, the stuff you can do. I think for our events, having a custom scent has been a game changer for us. Yeah. We have had people who have bought tickets to our events for the custom scent. We have had people who bought tickets to our events for the custom coffee. Like, people get excited about the stuff. But beyond that, like, for us, the scent especially, it puts people in throughout the entire year. We send them home with some of the scent, and all they have to do, because I spend 3 days at the event training their brains that this scent means X. It means time to focus on your business. Yeah. And so for the entire, like, anytime they want to work on their business throughout the year, They take the scent out, they spritz it. I've literally had people who messaged me 2 years after an event going, so I just spritzed it and I thought of you and I had to say thank you because I've been savoring it. And how do I get more of this? Because I'm about out and this is the only thing that gets me to focus on.
That's really cool. Yeah, I like that.
Like,
I like that. I do. Yeah, I will definitely. I've got my scented candle over there, but I hardly ever use it. So yeah, I'll have to. I do like, and it's interesting how scent really does trigger memories. Like I like patchouli always reminds me of like downtown head shops in Toronto, but like back in the day of going to buy like cheap t-shirts and like smoking like Mexican beaties, they were like 25 cents for like these terrible, I don't know, not cigarettes, but whatever. But I'm kind of dating the reference here.
Smokes.
Yeah. Or when I go into a garage, like with my car, I mean like an auto shop, and I smell gas or oil, especially oil. I worked at a gas station in a garage when I was a kid, and so that always takes me back to that. And so, yeah, there's definitely stuff there. Man, our time is completely raced by here, and I just realized I have another call that I've got to hop off on. So, Stephanie, this has been so much fun. Thank you for joining me. How can people find out more about you, your events, and all that good stuff? And if you need a speaker, I know a great one that you should talk to.
I was gonna say I should probably get some of your I'll get you some information okay, so short answer, because I know you can after we half praised, half bashed on LinkedIn. I do spend far too much time on LinkedIn, so it's a great way to get in touch with me directly. The other thing I would encourage, like the Grow Disrupt website. So my company is Grow Disrupt, and one, if anyone's interested in all of the research studies, I never have a problem sending those out to people. They're not posted on the site, probably should at some point, but I'm happy to send those out. But if you fill out the contact form there and you're like, hey, heard stuff on why squirrels had questions, my team will get it to me within a day. And it's a really good way to actually get my attention because it comes in through the website and my team tells me to pay attention to it. So those are probably the best options.
And that's growdisrupt.com?
Yes, growdisrupt.com. Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining me. This has been awesome.
Same. I appreciate it. I'm excited for getting to connect with you in real time finally. And hopefully this will not be the last conversation we get to have. I feel like we probably have a few more areas we should discuss.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I want to come smell your scent.
Yeah.
Don't tell your husband or my wife that I just said that, because that sounds really awkward. If that was the one moment she walked in and heard me, she'd be like,
I was going to say that needs to be like the little caption for the whole podcast episode.
Come for the speakers, stay for the scent. All right. This has been fun. We'll talk again soon. Thanks so much.
That was great. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah. Bye. Thanks for watching the podcast. Please join us at whysquirrels.com. I'll see you there.